Why on earth do the GWS Giants continue to have such poor crowds and membership numbers despite relative success, especially compared to other expansion team, the Gold Coast Suns? As the AFL's newest expansion team, joining the competition in 2012, the Greater Western Sydney Giants continue to struggle to attract fans to their games and winning the support of those in Western Sydney, who they seek to represent. Although the AFL is prepared to play the long game in that they believe that kids in Western Sydney will grow up supporting the Giants, there is no doubt the progress made so far has been underwhelming. When brought into the competition, there was a sense of hope that the game of Aussie rules football could rise in popularity in Western Sydney, even rivaling the dominance of rugby league in the area. Unfortunately, AFL currently does not seem to be close to winning the battle with the NRL in Sydney's western suburbs, and here are 6 reasons why and how these problems can be fixed. First of all, the name. Greater Western Sydney Giants is a mouthful, and shortening to GWS sounds like it could be the name of a company rather than a metropolitan region that this team represents. No one in Western Sydney refers to themselves as being from Greater Western Sydney, and I always thought the term Greater was just so the team could begin with a G to match the nickname Giants and therefore the logo, which is a G. My solution is that they simply drop the term Greater from their name and become the Western Sydney Giants as a simple way of reconnecting with the area. Next, the location is an issue. When many players and staff don't even live in the western suburbs, it makes it difficult to connect with the community. Of course, this is hard considering the eastern side of Sydney is much more desirable, especially when trying to retain young talent from interstate. However, this doesn't seem to be an issue for the NRL's Parramatta Eels and Penrith Panthers, as well as the A-League's Wanderers. There are still nice enough areas outside of the eastern suburbs that players can live in, and the sacrifice may be worth it if they want to play in front of higher crowds. When the Giants were first formed, they actually were based out of Blacktown. However, they were offered to play matches at a new boutique stadium at the Sydney Olympic Park precinct in Homebush, and the plan was abandoned. Furthermore, rugby league fans often complain about travelling to ANZ Stadium for games, and if the NRL struggles to bring in its own fans to that stadium, then the Giants have struggled big time to attract the rugby league demographic, particularly from the western suburbs who they are seeking to represent. Although it is west of the CBD, it is considered more central west than a western suburb, and ideally playing matches in an area such as Parramatta, where the new CommBank Stadium is located, would have been a better location. Although in the short term, there must be a greater effort to build strong connections with local football clubs and community organisations in Western Sydney. They must, and I emphasise the must, focus on Western Sydney and not Sydney as a whole, or even New South Wales as a whole. And although they play some games in Canberra, this should be thought of more as a temporary move, as Canberra may look for its own team or a relocated Victorian team in the future. Maintaining a presence in Blacktown through football clinics and visits to schools is important. Even giving out free or discounted tickets to school kids in the area should be a start. Ultimately, the aim should be to build a truly Western Sydney team, and a good start would be for players and staff to live in Western Sydney, or at least west of Homebush, and to make a real effort to promote AFL and the Giants brand to schools, local football clubs and other community centres. The third solution is to promote the toughness of the AFL. The first thing rugby league fans point to when criticising AFL is that it is too weak, too soft, or
Got 3 boys, you play AFL, you have 3 daughters.
The working class identity of the western suburbs is strongly correlated with the identity of NRL fans in the area, which makes it difficult for the AFL to break through in popularity unless its perception changes. Of course, AFL is a tough sport, with some of the biggest hits, and this must be promoted to these communities. Currently, the Giants have made the mistake of making their game seem like a cute little day out for the kids, whether you might get a sticker and a lolly bag. Of course, it is important to encourage families to attend and create a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. However, an emphasis on this too strong kills the passionate atmosphere that is common for working class fans to have. To convince NRL fans that AFL is in fact a tough game, they must create a so-called tough image for the club. If the Giants are targeting 6-year-old girls as their key demographic, then it will struggle to get rugby league working class fans or migrant soccer fans to want to support the club. Even the name of the Giants itself should speak to Western Sydney residents as a mascot that represents the strong-willed mindset of the area. The solution is easier said than done. However, promotional marketing videos should seek to inspire people, similar to a military-style campaign video. Market players in a way that they are warriors, and a player such as Toby Green, through his polarising reputation, could be a marketable player to connect with the area, which is known for being a bit rough around the edges. Fans need to know who some of the Giants players are, and promoting how strong and tough they are can cut through to the kids who come from a rugby league family. The Giants need to be viewed as a team that represents the West at its core, not an external project forced upon the people of Western Sydney. The next issue we will talk about is the coverage, which is not really an issue to Western Sydney, but to New South Wales and Queensland generally. AFL is still not as accessible to watch in New South Wales and Queensland as it is elsewhere in the country, although the AFL's increasing lack of free-to-air coverage is something it must address to avoid losing support. Of course, rugby league is, and will still likely be, the prime sport in New South Wales and Queensland. However, the AFL must work on making sure the AFL is played on Channel 7 directly, as opposed to 7 Mate, on prime time, and it must focus on promoting it more in local media outlets. AFL related shows such as The Front Bar are shown live in AFL prime states, however are not shown live in New South Wales and Queensland at prime time. They may be shown at 10 or 11 PM, for example, which is what happened with the footy show. Many people in Western Sydney don't know many AFL players, and they're lucky to have even heard of Buddy Franklin. And the AFL must set out a campaign that promotes Giants players such as Toby Green, Stephen Coniglio, Lachie Whitfield, and others, as well as the next generation coming through. For my solution, the AFL must address its lack of free-to-air coverage more broadly, as although it may make more money from streaming services and Foxtel, it must find more free-to-air networks who are willing to provide high-quality coverage nationally, including New South Wales and Queensland live. Secondly, they must seek deals with local media in New South Wales that promotes key Giants players, so a majority of people in Western Sydney are at least familiar with the names. Obviously, the only effective way to make the papers is to be winning, but a strong effort through increasing footy clinics and billboard campaigns can help. But the TV coverage is the most effective solution to this. The next reason I will discuss was briefly mentioned in points 2 and 3, which is connecting with the multicultural region. Western Sydney is one of the most ethnically and culturally diverse areas in Australia, and that makes connecting the club and players, who most are not from New South Wales, a challenge. 38% of the region speaks a language other than English at home, and it should be an opportunity for the Giants to bridge this divide by making footy the common language for all. Many Pacific Islander kids have rugby league players to look up to, and many African, Middle Eastern and East Asian kids look towards soccer since kids from these backgrounds feel a sense of familiarity with those from the same culture as them. It is important to note that race is not the only thing that kids can relate to, as the great thing about sport is that it breaks down racial and cultural divides in society. Although the Israel Folau experiment has failed, the Giants must not give up in finding a marketable player who can inspire these first or second generation migrant kids who would otherwise support rugby league or soccer. A Batcha Hooley type of player would have been a great option. If it can break down barriers, the Giants should look at promoting advertisements in languages such as Arabic, Mandarin and Vietnamese, the 3 most commonly spoken languages in Western Sydney besides English, explaining the rules of AFL to those who may not be familiar. As first generation immigrants have no preconceived biases to supporting NRL over AFL, the Giants need to sell themselves as the team that represents them. The 6th and final way GWS can attract fans is through creating exciting matchday entertainment. The Giants are seriously lacking when it comes to ticket sales, at just over 9,000, which includes games in Canberra. so there must be a new approach when it comes to creating an exciting atmosphere. Currently, the game day experience looks dead, with half the stands empty and no real energy at Giants Stadium. Although it's difficult attracting fans to a new market, it is not impossible, as highlighted by the NHL's Vegas Golden Knights. Las Vegas was previously an area that had no connection to ice hockey. It's in the desert for a start. But the Vegas Golden Knights have become one of the great success stories of sport. Their games have been sellouts, and although a very successful team in moving there helps, as they were runners-up in their first year, many of their new fans arose from the entertainment and excitement that they created on their match days. Las Vegas is a city known for its entertainment, and the Golden Knights have added to that with their fast-paced style of ice hockey and constant entertainment, bringing their sport to a new market of fans. Obviously, Western Sydney is a completely different environment to Las Vegas. However, there must be a way to build up the pre-game and halftime entertainment at the games. My solution, although expensive, it could be worth the risk of bringing in a quality band that is popular in Western Sydney to a big game to play pre-game and at halftime in an effort to attract new fans to the game. This is risky and could only work for a Friday or Saturday night game, and pre-game and halftime light shows or fireworks could be an alternative. Fan contests to kick the footy into the goals or a bucket, cheerleading, marching bands should be considered to create some kind of atmosphere. Local Western Sydney music talent should be brought into the pre-match and halftime entertainment weekly as a way to increase their exposure and embed the Giants into the community. The NFL's Green Bay Packers cheeseheads that fans wear to games could be replicated if there are players that possess a memorable nickname that could be made into a similar attire. The Giants already have one of the best songs in the league, but it's time for them to take the next step and build an exciting atmosphere for everyone to enjoy. In summary, these are 6 ways the Giants could address their problems in order to attract a big crowd to the west of the town. However, questions remain on whether their crowds will improve. This will be tough as they are well and truly past their peak in 2019, and the recent success of the NRL's Penrith Panthers and Parramatta Eels makes it even harder. I really hope the Giants can become a big club in the area, so what do you think? Will the Giants build a loyal army of supporters, or are they destined for failure? See you next time on the GeoHawk channel.
Well, there's a big sound from the west of the town. It's the sound of the mighty Giants.